Well, happy Federal Tax Return Day, everybody. I know this is a day we all get excited about every year. The deadline for filing your taxes, April 15. So to keep me cheered up, I'm drinking coffee more than usual today. Paying homage to my home back in East Kentucky, Double Quick Markets, good business. So shout out to them as well. All right, Exodus chapter 8. Exodus chapter 8 today. I want to ask and answer a question before I share with you my devotional thought. Maybe it's a question some of you had. Why were the Egyptian magicians, those who were working with Pharaoh, why were they able to mimic the first couple of plagues? You'll remember when Moses threw his rod down and it became a snake. They mimicked that. But then his snake ate their snakes. And there's information behind that, a way that they could paralyze snakes, etc. But also, with the frogs and so on. Why were they able to the blood? They turned water into blood like Moses did with the rod. Let me say a few things about that. One, they did it on a very limited scale, very small scale. They didn't do it, mass like Moses turning all of the Nile River and the ponds and drinking waters. They could do it in a few small pots. So they could mimic, but it was on a much smaller scale. Another thing is, like with the snake, it was tricks. That's what we talk about. You go see a magic show. It's not real magic, it's tricks. Well, they were able to do some of that. Once you get to, I think it's the gnats and so on, they weren't able to mimic that. So there was limitations to what they could do. And then secondly, don't forget that, Satan and demons have power to do certain things as well. And they can't do what God can do. They don't have unlimited power. Their power is limited. But Satan can mimic things to an extent. And so all of that's going on here. So just wanted to answer that question for you. Now, devotionally, what really stood out to me is the way Pharaoh just kept hardening his heart and refused to listen. He refused to listen to anyone. No matter how bad things got, no matter how much good advice he got, he refused to listen to anyone. Think about in chapter 8, the second of the 10 plagues, the frogs that covered the land. And it got so bad that he asked Moses to pray to Yahweh, God, the God of Israel, and ask God to take the frogs away, and that he would let the people go sacrifice to God and worship. And in verse 13 of chapter 8, the Lord did according to the word of Moses, and the frogs died out of the houses, the courts, and the fields. So God got rid of the frogs. And notice in verse 14, there were so many of them, they piled them up in heaps, and the land became foul. In other words, it stunk. Verse 15, but when Pharaoh saw that there was relief, he hardened his heart and did not listen to them as the Lord had said he would do. You ever known somebody, they reach out to people when things are tough. They pray to God when things are tough. But when things get better, when there's relief, they don't keep their word. They don't follow through with their promises, with their commitments. We've all seen people like that. That's Pharaoh here. The third plague, the gnats, and man, I can't imagine how bad that was. You ever, walked into a swarm of gnats, and it's just awful. And gnats were covering the land. It was horrible. And the magicians, after this, are not able any longer to mimic any of the plagues. And in verse 19, we read, then the magician said to Pharaoh, this is the finger of God. When they realized they couldn't even mimic it on a small scale, they realized, this is way beyond us. This is a God thing. This is something God is doing. This is the finger of God. And Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he did not listen to them as the Lord had said. Said he's not going to listen. He's going to harden his heart. And so here's an example of his own people, not just Moses and Aaron, his own people advising him. This is God. Hey, we're getting in trouble here, but he wouldn't listen to anybody. And then you have the fourth plague, the plague of flies. And shoot, man, you ever, growing up on a farm, you get around the cattle sometimes, and man, horse flies, just awful. I can't imagine how bad this was. And Pharaoh agrees to let the people go and worship and so on and sacrifice to God. But in verse 32, Pharaoh hardened his heart this time also, just like all the times before, and he did not let the people go. What's the point? The point is that sometimes people are their own worst enemy. Maybe that's been true of me and you at times, been our own worst enemy, our own stubbornness to change, stubbornness to follow through with a commitment, can be an enemy that hurts us. And when our stubbornness hurts us, it tends to also hurt others who are part of our world. That was true with the Egyptians and the Pharaoh. Not listening to good advice is very unhealthy. It's very risky, dangerous. And not listening to good advice often causes us to make things worse. I'm really thankful that we are reading one of the chapters in Proverbs each Friday as we're reading these chapters in Genesis and Exodus and so on. Because Proverbs talks about wisdom. And one of the ways we attain wisdom is listening to the wise advice of godly, experienced people. And when we do that, we become wise and we make better decisions and our lives are better. And when we don't, we make worse decisions and our lives can get worse. Stubbornness can be your biggest enemy if you're not careful. It was for Pharaoh, and I imagine it may be for some of us. Something we need to think about. Well, hey, thanks for being with me on this tax day. Tomorrow we'll be in Exodus chapter 9. God bless you and have a great day, everybody.